17 of My Career Chronicles, and where we dive deep and begin to unpack real stories from some of the best and brightest professionals across different fields and industries and career paths. And today we are going to be getting into the world of software testing, which is one of the biggest and emerging careers in the tech industry. And today I am super excited for who is going to be my guest today. And I can't wait to begin to chat about this very great industry, this very great career. And also, I'm giving a welcome to everyone who will be joining us this live session. Feel free to tell us where you're joining from. Feel free to tell us what you do. Feel free to drop your question as we begin to go. And as we wait to welcome our guest right here, and we'll begin to get into it. And our guest today is Mr. Kenneth Etuk, who is a software tester with Crossover Health in the United States. And today we are going to begin to understand what exactly do software testers do, what is their role, how do they help in building the softwares, because we get to hear like so many different careers and so many different names, and sometimes we don't really know what exactly do these people do or what exactly this career is about. And like I always say, My Career Chronicles is actually the podcast where we talk about the part of someone's career that you are never going to find on their LinkedIn. I didn't even find Mr. Kenneth on LinkedIn. So that tells you that, to every story, there is an inside story. And right here at My Career Chronicles is where we begin to unpack the inside story. And for today's inside story, we will be unpacking the story of software testing, or like some people call it, or as it's called in some parlance, it's called software quality assurance engineering. Whatever side you lean, whatever perspective you have around this, we are going to get into it and we are going to begin to understand it one after the other, whether it be software testing or software quality assurance engineering. We're going to get to hear from Mr. Kenneth, and we're going to get to have the opportunity to ask questions and then learn from his journey into the world of software testing, what you need to get into that career, what that career is all about, what exactly do they do there, how is it done, what are the challenges associated with that career, what exactly has the journey been like for him. And as we begin to unpack this journey, I think it's going to be a great opportunity for us to begin to mirror into what really happens behind the scenes. Because again, if you go to his LinkedIn page, you're going to see that he works as a software quality assurance engineer, software tester, whatever name, at Crossover Health. But what exactly is that about? What exactly does a software quality assurance engineer do? What exactly, what are the nitty gritty of this career? And just like every other session, every other episode that we've hosted here, we usually dive deep into the part of that career that is not out there in the open. Yeah. I mean, sometimes we get to see like JD's job descriptions, but I've come to realize in the course of my own career as a person that jobs are just beyond job descriptions. Job descriptions do not tell the full story. LinkedIn achievements, about my job or about anybody's job, as a matter of fact, do not tell the full story. The company title do not tell the full story. I can go on and on and on and on and on, but that's exactly what we do at My Career Chronicles. The part of the story that is not being told, the part of the story that is not public knowledge, then we bring people here to come and talk about that part of the story. And like I said again, I see some of you are here with us live. Shout out to everyone who is joining us live. Just begin to tell me where you are joining from and your name and where you are joining from. Yeah. And as we wait for our guests, yeah, I will be very happy to read from people who are joining us live here. Yeah, your name and where you are joining from. Okay. Who is joining us live here? I know sometimes we have people joining us from different parts of the world. And something very interesting about today's topic is that I had a stint as a software tester. Yeah, I had a stint as a software tester, and I used to work in quality assurance in the oil and gas industry. But at some point, I decided to also pivot into quality assurance in the tech industry. And that's why I had like my stint in software testing. It was quite a very, it was not a brief career, it was like a good time. and I get to learn a lot within that period. But so much has actually changed in that industry and in that career at this time. And that is exactly what the chat with Mr. Kenneth is going to unravel to us. I mean, since I sort of pivoted out from that career, I have no idea what has been going on over there. And again, we live in a very interesting time. We are in the time of AI. There's the AI revolution. AI is impacting careers, is impacting industries, is impacting various fields in ways and manners we never thought possible. So you begin to wonder, how is that impact going to be on the software testing industry or on the software testing career? How is that impact and how is it being managed? People are building agentic AI, so we are being in the age of agentic testing or agentic, autonomous testing or autonomous agents. So you begin to wonder what happens. Back in the days, people could just write like a checklist and begin to test based on those checklists. So what's going to happen when agents can actually just do all of that? Well, my projection will be that, that is also have to that career also has to evolve. But I'm not going to be able to tell all of that story, and that's exactly why I believe in bringing someone or bringing people who are real time in that industry, in that field, in that career, to actually tell us real time what exactly is happening. Yeah, because talking about predictions, anybody can make prediction. Just be able to predict it long enough, and like they always say, if you predict it long enough, it's definitely going to turn out to be the truth, or you will just not be able to, you would just not be around to see what happens to it. Once again, if you're joining us live, feel free to tell us where you're joining us from and your name and where you're joining us from. And I'm excited to welcome every one of you who is joining us live. Yeah. Let's just hang around and wait for our guests to come in. And like we normally do, if you are joining at any point in time on here, you can leave your question for Mr. Kenneth. You can leave your question for us, and we normally just address the question live and direct on the show. Yeah, we don't postpone it. We address the question live and direct on the show. So feel free to tell us your name, where you're joining from. If you have any question around the software testing career, the software testing industry, just throw that question over there in the comment section. I am going to read it out here live and direct. And our guests, or myself, going to address that question, and then we will just go from there. Yeah. Yeah, I see you guys. I see some of you joining. Yeah, thank you very much for making out the time to join. And once again, if you are not following this channel, My Career Chronicles with James Udom, I really encourage you to follow this channel. What I do in this channel is to bring the best and brightest young professionals to talk about the part of their career you're not going to find on their LinkedIn profile or even publicly available knowledge. So feel free to follow this channel, turn on the bell icon so you get notifications about any of any of my sessions, and also do me the favor. I mean, if you give me that favor, I'm going to take it, of sharing this channel and sharing some of these recordings or sharing some of these episodes with your friends and families and everybody in between. I really believe that this is the kind of message that should go out. We've done interviews for young professionals across a wide range of industries, from software engineering to supply chain management to account management to DevOps engineering to machine learning to data science. Name them. I mean, this is episode 17, as a matter of fact. So you can imagine how wide we've gone into it. And we are not stopping. I am not stopping. So I will continue to bring some of the best guests on this show to talk about career. This is a career focused platform. So thank you for your support thus far. And next month is going to make this channel a year old. Yeah, I started this channel December 2024. So next month is going to make it a year old, and I am just so excited for the support so far. We've grown in ways I didn't even think possible when I started this. So I just wanted to appreciate every one of you for supporting. Just wanted to appreciate every one of you for always making out the time to join. Just wanted to appreciate every one of you for always making out the time to share on whatever platforms, on X, on Facebook, on Instagram, on WhatsApp. I get to see some of these, some of them. I never get to see any of these ones. You just share it out of the love. That love means a lot to me, and I am super grateful, and I super appreciate. Yeah. Is there anyone talking to us? Oh, favorite time of the day. Yeah. Question and answer. Yeah. Favorite time of the day. Yeah. So, yeah. Is anyone talking to us? Like, if you're joining us from anywhere, just your name and where you are joining from. Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to check in with our guests to see if they are having like any challenge joining. Yeah. I'm going to just do a real quick checkup on our guests to see if there is any challenge with them joining. But while we are at that, let's just have your name and where you're joining from, and we're gonna get the guests real quick to join us. Yeah. All right, our guests will be joining us soon. Yeah. Hi, Nova XT. Yeah. Hi, Nova XT. I see you. Thank you for joining. Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome, Nova XT. We'll be talking about software testing today. Thank you for making out the time to join, and feel free to drop your question and tell us where you are joining from. Yeah. All right. Who again is joining us? I see some of you. I know maybe you don't want to mention your name. I know maybe you don't want to like, talk about where you are joining from, but I see you. Yeah. All right. Okay, Nova XZ, you are joining from India. Wow, I'm so excited. That's all the way. And I imagine what the time is now. I know India is like about 10 hours from the US, 10 hours different, something like that. Yeah. So I imagine what the time is now in India. It should be like late in the evening. It should be late in the evening. So thank you very much for like making out the time to join us here. Yeah. I see our guest said he has asked to rejoin. I'm trying to get our guest. Oh, 11 p.m. Oh, Nova XT. Thank you so much. Yeah, I imagine. Yeah, I knew it's so much different between India and the US. All right, our guest is here. Yeah, we made it finally. Yeah, our guest is here. I just added him. Hello, hello, Mr. Kenneth.
Hi. Hello, John.
Yes, yeah, we finally made it. I don't know. I think we had like a little struggle between you joining, and I don't know what really happened there, but super excited to have you.
Thank you. I don't know what happened as well. I was here on time. But uh, I guess I'm here now.
I mean, I guess that's really all that matters. And thank you very much for making out the time to join. I know that the times are really very busy now and you have so much going on. And just before you join, I was just introducing the show and welcoming everyone. And now that you are here, I am just going to get into the business of the day. We try to keep it very swift and very straightforward over here. And like I always say, my career chronicles is the podcast that we talk about the part of people's career that you cannot find on their LinkedIn. And I was just saying that I can't even find Mr. Kenneth on LinkedIn right now. So you imagine if you're trying to find something about Mr. Kenneth, then the best place to be is My Career Chronicles, because
Right.
even LinkedIn, you're not going to find him. So you're welcome, Mr. Kenneth. And if you are ready, I am ready.
Yeah. I'm. And hi to everyone who has joined. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, Mr. Kenneth, we have a very conventional way of doing it over here in My Career Chronicles. And our first question is always very, very conventional. So, real quick, can you tell us a bit more about yourself and how you discovered software testing? Just tell us about growing up. What was that like? And, were you just born and then boom, you became a software tester? I don't know, but over to you.
Yeah. Right. Thank you. So I am Kenneth Etuk. Right. I was born and bred in Cross River State. Right. In the early 1980s. Right. I grew up in Calabar. I, grew up mostly with my dad. Yeah, I attended a government primary school, Main Avenue, and then I moved on to attend Hobodel Training Institution. So, just thinking about it, memory of my childhood is that of a child who had a very big imagination, right? I had a very big imagination, very inquisitive, always wanting. I had a particular knack for basically trying to understand how things work. Okay, I remember I had a treasure bag. Some people would call it a bag full of junks, but I call it my treasure bag. It consisted of stuff I would just randomly find on the streets. Even though I didn't know what it was for or would use it, but I somehow believed that it would be useful for me when I'm trying to put things together and stuff like that. Uh, yeah. So I finished secondary school in 2021. Ought to have been 20. Lost my dad in 1997. Had to move in with an uncle. Had to change school. Stayed at home for a year. Finished secondary school in 2021. And something happened in 2000. Right. So let me go back to 2000. Something happened in the year 2000. It was the year when they hosted the Olympics in Sydney, Australia. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I was watching one of the events. I watched the 400 event that Nigeria participated in the final. I think we had Nefe Odobong, Sunday Bada, and some other folks, and some other athletes who ran in that final. A heroic outing in that event sort of had an indelible mark in my life, right? They didn't finish first. They actually finished behind the US team USA, uh, anchored by I think Johnson. But on that day, when I saw a fellow countryman, someone uh, that who came from the same tribe as myself, in Odogon, ran in that final and put up such a show, I made a decision to take the sport. Right. So what I did was I saw out I saw out where the stadium was and basically took to for and from 2023 to 2020 to 2011 I have been actively into sport, like competing at the national level, winning laurels and stuff like that. I actually at the point had the dream of going to Olympic, right? But yeah, somehow I had to also somehow I also got into school. I actually got into school 5 years after I left secondary. Yeah. So I finished secondary school 2021, but got into school got into university in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I was having to manage my career as an athlete and and school. Right. By the way, I didn't go into athletics. I went into weightlifting. Right. When I went to the gym, the coach examined me. They made a decision that I would be much suited for to be a weightlifter, to be a runner and stuff like that. So yeah, I so it went on. But in 2012, 2011 actually, after winning, the you know winning, I think I got a career achievement. I got two national gold medals, two silver, later. But at some point, I had to make a decision between school and and sport, because obviously sport was the time I was putting into sport was messing up messing up my school my CGPA, as they call it in school. So at
Yeah.
some point I had to I decided to take a break. Hey, I need to clean this up. So I at school I studied computer science, right? I studied computer science. Um, from 2006 to.
I'm going to pause you there real quick because this is a story that I'm not even aware of. I mean, and I'm very sure that so many people, even people very close to you, don't know this story. And it's not a recent story. We are talking about 2001 to 2011. There is like or 2006 to 2011. This is a very a very interesting story. So my curiosity is like you excel so much in sport first is that you got so inspired by like maybe your fellow tribesmen doing well at an Olympics all the way from Nigeria to the US, and then that sort of inspired you to go into the world of sport, and then you grew and then you went as far as winning national medals like gold. That is not
Yeah.
Anthony. Yeah, welcome Anthony from Nigeria. That is not something, it's not commonplace. This is a national medal we're talking about. So my curiosity is like, so why didn't you just, when you decided to go to the university, why did you now decide to get into computer science? I mean, you could have gone on to do maybe physical and health education, or maybe, I don't know, any of the sport related courses, or was it even necessary? I mean, you're already winning national medals. You could have just gone on to become, maybe go to the Olympics like you aspired to go. What happened in that, in that time?
Oh yeah. I'm glad you asked. Right. So growing up, don't know if I mentioned. So I grew up into a lower class family, like you know, um, a struggling household, as it were. And I had the determination in me growing up to ensure that there was a change. Basically, I was, I had, I had the, I had the zeal, right? I had the zeal to break off the shackle of that struggle. So when I took to sports and was, making all of those exploits and also seeing fellow fellow athlete, long-standing athlete who had excelled at Olympics, National Sports Festival, Commonwealth Games, and stuff like that. And I mean no disrespect for them, right? They had done the country a whole lot of service. But when I looked at how well off they were, right, financially, it wasn't really adding up. Okay, these are folks that had gone on to represent the country at the highest of sports, right? But back home, that these guys, these people are still struggling. So the system um, wasn't really compensating them adequately for their effort. So I I look at those and I ponder within myself. Is this really going to help me break out of this shackle I've always longed for? So it was at that point that I realized that school, being in sport alone, and I'm speaking from this perspective of where I come from. I know the situation may be different from elsewhere, like in the US and stuff like that. But, I'm speaking from a perspective where I just realized that it wasn't going to cut it for me, based on what I've seen, how it had turned out for others, right? It was then that I said, okay, whatever, so my of going to Olympics, I had to dish it, really, because I knew that at the end of the day, I've seen folks going to Olympics and all of that, but really, really nothing much to show for, and that's really a shame, right? That was when I said, it's okay. It has to be education. It has to be education, and I was so determined to have that education, because at a point where I had no sponsor, I had to I had to foot the bills, I had to sponsor myself and make sure, okay, I had a degree, because in my mind I saw it like it was going to be my passport out of this struggle. Yeah. So and you had asked why I didn't take to physical education and stuff like that. So I had been a science student, right?
Oh
And
God.
it actually never actually occurred to me that, okay, you're an athlete, why not go do something related to it? If I had done it, perhaps I would have I could have ended up as a sport administrator, in which my fortune could have been better, right? But again, decision that I've taken, I decided to venture into computer science, which I haven't regretted, right? I actually think it's the best decision that I made, for myself. So yeah, 20 left. I graduated from school in 2024 in 2014. Yeah. So after 2014, I had a job as a teacher, teaching to high school students, right? I think I was there for 5 years, or 4 to 5 years, really. And I basically got to know about software testing from a friend who was also a classmate of mine, right? He he introduced me into software testing. It's sort of really funny how the whole thing started. I was just so he sent me a message, and it was like, see if you can solve this challenge. That's it, right? I looked at the challenge. It turns out, how when you are applying for a job, you are sent assessment and stuff like that. It turns out that it was some sort of assessment, okay. And even though I hadn't for software testing before, I just decided to give it a go. Decided to okay, let me see if I can sort this out. You know, the concepts that I found I found I saw in the assessment that I didn't understand. To use the internet to look it up and stuff like that. At the end of the day, I felt was okay and sent back to him. I'm sure he also added his own touch to it. He also added his own touch to it for submitting and stuff like that. But it turns out that after that submission, he was invited to for the next round of interview. Right. So I guess from that point, he had a certain kind of belief in me, because I know the effort he put in after that to make sure that I took to software testing. Right. I don't want the word pester, but he did everything, and I'm very grateful to God. I'm grateful to him that he went that length. Right. Yeah. So I remember when we're in the same city, and I think he got a job, not from the one we had an assessment done, right, but he got a job as a software tester and was about to leave the city. He called me, said, come to the house, come with a laptop. I went, I visited him, went with a laptop, and he gave me tons and tons and tons of materials. Just transferred it, several gigabytes of material, audio, audio, text, what have you, transferred into my laptop and asked me, and just find time to study it.
Okay, Mr. Kenneth. Okay, you seem to have done several pivots. You pivoted from to be an athlete. You pivoted into weightlifting. You pivoted into maybe from going into the sports administration thing to computer science. And after computer science, I mean, typically most people after computer science would want proceed to be maybe software engineers. I know that software testing is not like it's not out there, it's not a big name out there, People that finish from computer science, you always hear them say, oh, they went on to become software engineers and maybe product managers, something like that. So but let's step back a bit and begin to drill down into this software testing. So if I'm going to ask you, what is this software testing? I know that in some other parlance, people call it software quality assurance engineering. I'm not sure if there is any difference, if it's just semantics, but I'm going to leave that, for you, you know. So I'm going to leave that for you. But if you were to explain software testing and maybe what software testers do to a 5-year old, how would you explain it? What would you say that word is really all about?
Yeah, thanks. Uh, Software testing, right? So basically, I guess I have the fact that when when software applications are following uh, a certain is called the software development life cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
From the moment uh, a software solution is conceived to when it is designed to when it is the coding is done. So testing is an integral part of the software development lifecycle. Is the way of verifying that the application so developed meets the business, because all applications are developed to satisfy business needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for a business need, a business analyst would sit down to put down business requirements. Developers would develop their applications by the business requirement as well as the technical specifications, right? Developers are not testers. They've done their job to the best of their ability. For there to be an assurance that this application meets that business need, it has got to go through rigorous testing, subjected to different scenarios, right? To have that, to have that confidence. So it's the duty of software quality assurance engineers, or whatever you want to test that, to comprehensively test that application during the software development life to ensure that it satisfies the business requirement. Basically, you're testing to verify that this application does what it's intended to do, and then you're also testing to verify that this application does not act or does behave in an unintended manner, because you, when your applications are developed, you're probably going to deploy it over the internet and with for users to engage with it. There are most of the users on the internet are benign users. They want to use the application for what service it provides. But there are some. We also have users who are malicious users, right? If you have users who or who deliberately try to reverse engineer, try to look for defects, loopholes in applications, and when they do find those loopholes, uh, they could use it for whatever mischievous gains that have in mind. So it's important to ensure that the application does not, an application does not only satisfy the business need, but it also works. It also develop in a way that it does not act or behave in an unintended. Satisfying business need doesn't just the functionality. Okay, does it perform the function? How about when you're subjecting it to different scenarios? How does it perform around performance? If you have, so applications are developed and deployed to servers. Servers have their capacity. Servers are intended to have for multiple users to connect at the same time. What amount of users would connect to this connect to this application? That what amount of user, or what level of connection would this application or would this server sustain, right? We hear of cases where during a Black Friday, what is it called? Some of these merchants or
Like e-commerce website and where people like
website, you just hear that they've crashed and all of that because you have tons and tons and tons of people trying to connect, trying to get buy one thing or the other at the same time. That happened probably because comprehensive testing was not done around performance to see, okay, what are the maximum of users that can successfully connect to this application with and its function as intended. So testing application is a very very crucial activity. History is riddled with instances where organizations have suffered a whole lot of losses, right, due to application failing. For example, we have a case of a famous case of Toyota in the mid thousand, where they had to recall thousands of their cars because they were basically accelerating. So the vehicle, imagine you are and you suddenly accelerate without you having to provide any input. You're not stepping on the gas. It suddenly accelerate. You can only imagine what that would amount to. So the way accident crashes and stuff like that, and they had to recall all of vehicles. They suffered huge losses in revenue and reputational damage. Then, when during investigation, it was found out that the issue was due to a defect. The issue was due to an error in the software. The software wasn't handling variables correctly, and then there was memory corruption. That led to that issue. That defect had been there, but it wasn't discovered, and then the product was roll out only for such issues to happen. As 2018, 2019, we're aware of we've heard of perhaps in the news about the incident that involved Boeing ships, Boeing 737, where two of their aircraft crashed. One belonging to Ethiopia, and I think the other one belonging to total of 300. I think more than 340 persons died. Right, because of that, they had to grant Boeing for the guy had to grant the entire fleet for months, resulting to billions of dollars in damages. During investigation, it was also determined that an error in MCAS software module was responsible for that. So you had a situation where the software was going rogue, the nose of the plane down,
Yeah.
preventing the pilot from control. It forced the nose of the plane down to a point where it runs into the ground, right? If and it was determined that if exhaustive testing was done, right, subjecting it to all of the possible, that issue, that error, or that defect would have been caught, addressed, and that incident would have been averted. So, and there are plethora of other incidences, real world incidents, right, that tend to underscore the importance of this thing, as unfortunate as they are, right? They tend to underscore the importance of testing and application, right?
Let's get into like the toolbox of a software tester, of a software quality assurance engineer. I believe that for every career there are like there are different tools in your toolbox. Just like the mechanic, the whatever. Every career has their different tools in that toolbox. Uh, what would you identify today as the various tools in the toolbox of a software tester or software quality assurance engineer? What are those tools? What are those maybe software, whatever? Because sometimes I know a software tester uses a software to test a software. So that in that case, that software becomes a tool. But let's talk about those tools real quick.
Yeah. So before we even look at the tools, we need to understand that they are different of software testing,
Okay.
right? So we have box testing and the black box testing. The white box testing is by those who are who are termed as SDET, or software development engineer, right? So these are software quality assurance engineers that have very good understanding of programs, right? They have almost the same level of understanding of code as so much so that they can walk through, or do an inspection of the code to try to find defect, or try to find bugs in their. They can also write unit test to try to test the various units of those codes, right? And for folks like that, they would employ or need to utilize a framework, a unit testing framework, right? Something like maybe N units or J units, combining it with a certain programming language, whether it's JavaScript. And basically, what they do at that is to, for every unit of a software. So a unit of a software would be like, let's look at the login password field would be a unit. The user field would be a unit. The submit button would be a unit. All of which are integrated in a module, right? The login module. So an SD used a unit testing framework to write unit tests to test each and every unit of those of that software. The unit themselves, work independently as a spec, so that when by the time they are integrated, they would work together as expected as well. And then we also have the aspect of testing that is referred to as black box testing. Black box testing by software test engineers who don't necessarily understand or who don't necessarily have to see the developer's code, right? What they are what they are concerned about is testing the application vis-a-vis the business requirements. They pick a requirement and then the right test cases for to test those requirements, and they test the application run by executing those test cases. So for them, they that's a manual testing. That's a manual of testing. What that basically means that they don't need to like in your word use a software to test a software. They are basically engaging with the software with the application under test,
Mm-hmm.
trying to follow the user journey to see if the application behave as intended. So for them, what they basically need is a spreadsheet, right? They will need a spreadsheet. It could be Excel or whatever Google Doc with which to write test cases, right? Write their test cases as per the requirement, and they probably need to have an understanding of uh, of a collaboration tool like Jira, like Trello, because after testing they will need to raise defects, follow through with the defect or the bug life cycle to from the point where it was to the point where it's been fixed, retested, and passed. Right, so they need to have uh, that that knowledge. Other than that, they only need to be able to communicate effectively, be able to use a communication tool like whatever is being used by their organization, their work, whether it's Zoom, Google Meet, but that does not yeah. So with regards to those are those would be what they would need, but they would all have an in-depth understanding of the software testing methodology, right? Because the software is tested in a systematic manner. You wouldn't just pick up an application and then you go testing it. You would need to draw a test plan, right, to spell out what how you about your testing. Your test plan will include your test approach. What are the things that are in scope of testing? What are the things that are out of scope of? What are your entry criteria? What must be satisfied before you can commence testing? What are your exit criteria? To what extent do you have this this there's no such thing like testing, right? But if you get a certain level of confidence, like okay, you have tested the 90, like 95, 98, 90, 98% application, and particularly the critical aspect of the application, and P1, P2, maybe P3 bugs have been fixed. Software could be released, right? Based on that realization. So for those would be manual tester doing testing the application in that manner. But the other thing we need to realize software testing as a manual tester is very, how do I say, is very tedious. It's very tedious. So it's very tedious in the sense that there's a whole lot of uh, documentation that you have to do, right? After by documentation, you need to write a whole lot of test cases, and then each time you are testing, you execute those test cases. Whether it's you're doing regression, you need to execute those tests. For in order to for company, for organizations or the development rather to reduce, because all of those times that you to do all of those things add up into the release cycle, right? Making the release cycle longer. But to the process, right? To shorten the process and achieve a release cycle, and also be able to cater to, find a way of not having to manually work on repetitive tasks. We have the aspect of automation testing, right? Where a software a test engineer will need to learn specific skills, understand how to write scripts in some programming languages that would do the same kind of work, the same manual testing. This that will follow the same manual testing approach like a manual tester. So, what the beauty of it is that once you've written your script, you can write. You only need to write it once, but you can execute it as possible. So, and scripts can take you like 5 minutes to test. The script can test it, and in seconds, right? So this would help to reduce the testing cycle. Also, take care of repetitive tasks and stuff like that. So for that, software test engineer will need to understand programming. Maybe whether they are learning Python, they are based on the framework they're using. So if they are using Selenium, for example, Selenium interface with Java, then they will need to understand Java, build a framework like a TestNG framework, where TestNG framework where they combine such tool as a TestNG, Maven to try to build a testing framework. If they are if they are learning if they are using um a different framework like the Cucumber, like the Spec to learn like a different programming language like C or Python, right? And then they use that in combination with tools like Cucumber to build the framework, an automation framework as well. So yeah, best regards to testing tools. That's how it plays out. This is not to forget the performance testers, right? Those testing, because that's also a specialized skill. No one test engineer will do all of these things. A performance tester will also have their own framework. They also have their own framework with which they use they could use tools like Jamie and other tools out there, basically to test the non-technical, the non-functional aspect of the application. Test advance to establish that the application can work effectively, being being exposed to a certain level of user load. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Kenneth. Yeah, you've mentioned like quite a good number of tools talking about the toolbox, starting from what people call the soft skill. I know you talked about communication and to the hard skill. Talked about learning like different programming languages and frameworks, depending on what you are doing, whether it's the white box testing or the black box testing also depending on if you are doing manual testing. But the idea of automating your manual testing will also mean that you have to be able to write a script to automate that, so it's still the same testing you are doing. But the point is that if you integrate like some technology or script writing or coding into it, then it makes your work easier and faster. But let's
Exactly.
come home a bit and imagine for once that I am just a newbie in all of these. And it's different for you who went on to university to study computer science and maybe you learned JavaScript, you learned Python and all of that. But let's imagine that, I'm just out here and I'm trying to find my foot in the software testing industry. Once I know people typically, once they begin to hear JavaScript and Python, they just hands off and like, okay, that's not for me. I'm done with this thing. I thought it was gonna be like, I thought it was just gonna be about maybe writing things on Excel spreadsheet or like. So, but my question really is, what is the roadmap like for beginners? What is that like? What is that journey like for beginners today? And or what would you recommend should be like the roadmap like for beginners who want to get a foot in the door in this very interesting career?
Yeah. So the roadmap for beginners, right? First, thing I would recommend for a beginner. And yeah, I have majored in computer science and stuff like that, but even that in itself would give me an edge, right? Because some of the things that I I get to see in the workplace, like let's say uh, someone from product is working on certain application and they are explaining the logic, flowchart and stuff like that. And these are stuff that I already, I had a level of knowledge about. It makes it easier for me to, to understand and also to contribute. But one doesn't necessarily have to be, have to hold a degree in computer science before you can take to software testing. In fact, out there in the wild, I've seen folks from all discipline, as all discipline. I wanted to say as diverse as agric, right? Coming software testing and make their mark, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for anybody listening, the fact that you didn't study computer science or one of the the discipline, mathematics, statistics, or engineering, what have you, doesn't necessarily stop you from venturing in career in software testing. To begin, I would recommend that anyone who is aspiring to become a software test engineer, you would have to expose yourself to the use of the computer. Your ability to use the computer effectively needs to be second nature. There are some things that you need to understand. How to install a software? Oh, I'm trying to install a software, it's not working, and it's telling me that there's a framework that is missing. Is it .NET framework? You need to be able to have to understand how to go about that. You install a .NET framework, it still doesn't work. Oh, go set the path variable, right? So, and things you can pick up from just your regular use of the computer. If you, in an attempt to do something, if you run into issue and you try to find out what the problem is, you only need to go Google. Now we are even in the age of AI, where just a simple query as "Why am I having this?" would bring out results with steps on how you can out. So the first thing would be one has to need to have good your dexterity with computer has to be very good. You need to understand, not necessarily very good, but it needs to be good. So when I say one may tend to imagine that, oh, you have to be over and above. No, but you need to understand how to work with some utilities like spreadsheet, right? If you're asked to make a data structure in a spreadsheet form, format it properly, to do that, you need to be good. You need to understand how to use word processor like Microsoft Word, and you need to also be able to you need to be have a decent command English, both spoken and written, because heck, if you're testing an application, if you're testing an application and you are, let's say you test an application and you are in your report, in your report, they are inconsistencies, there are errors in, let's say, in grammar, syntax, semantics, whatever. It sort of detracts from the work, from the work that you've done. So it's important to have such skills in the back. Other than that, for software testing, much like many other fields in tech, there are a whole lot of resources on the out there on the internet, right? So I would say start first by basically just searching out for free stuff, right? If you make a quick search for free software testing tutorial, you see a whole lot, right? Of that would teach you, that would expose you to, rather introduce you to testing, and you get to learn the basic stuff. What is software development life cycle? What is software testing life cycle? What does it mean to write test plan? Within the agile framework as well as the waterfall framework. Does it mean to write test cases? What is the format of a test case? Right? What does it mean to write a bug report? What is the format of a bug report? How to report the bug? So first thing I would recommend is go read these free reviews, right? After you've gathered such you've had some introductory knowledge into software testing, then sort of pick up a right. There are courses online that are very cheap to take on, particularly if you are good with if the individual is self-learning, right? You can pick up something and then you learn by yourself. You run into issues, that you try to find sort out the issues on your own, and the issues are not they're not something that is so difficult for you to surmount, or you only need to search, because whatever you are experiencing, whatever you are going to encounter, somebody else would have encountered it. About the internet is that people take their time to drop, to provide solutions to problems. You only need to search. So, enroll on courses, whether you're on Udemy, whether on Coursera, and then you've done that. I try to have hands-on experience. They are free. They are sites, right? They are sites that provide projects for people to work on. Some you work on them free, right? For others, they may give you to work on those projects. But the bottom line is, those working on those will give you hands-on experience, right? Because it's not enough to say, okay, I've written test cases, I've done this, I've done that. Have you actually have you tested an actual application, right? Because it's only when you test that you have the hands-on experience, because there are a whole lot of other things that you're going to which will make you better go. Okay, and then there's the aspect of certification, which for me, in my opinion, is not mandatory, but they are only just to give credibility. So if you choose to get a certification, ISTQB, or what have you, right? Those will only give you credibility. But what I know, what I see about the workplace, employers don't really like, for some roles, they don't really care about certification, right? All they care about is folks that can get it. They put you through an interview, and you're able to crack the interview. And cracking the interview would mean that you had homework, you had read the theory, you had done the practical. You're basically going to be asked questions around uh, testing, and testing, not in the theoretical setting, in an enterprise environment. Okay, so for one who uh, made effort to pick up some project, whether you're working on free project, and there are a whole lot of them on the internet, you want to search for it. Working in such environment, you with at least the entry level knowledge, that is required for you to gain an entry level job, and go on a career a successful career in software testing.
What's one mistake you often see beginners in getting into software testing career make? What is that mistake you see often and you think they can avoid it, and or you can help them to avoid it? Yeah.
Uh, yeah, mistake. So what I what I what I would what I would term as mistake would be beginners imagining, for example, imagining that, oh, because they are QA, they are software testers, they are like at the lower echelon of of the organization, right? They don't think highly. So I'm not imagining that they're going to walk about with their shoulders high, feeling very proud and all of that. But you need to understand that the work you're doing is a very, very crucial work. Nobody else can do it like you. And if you're taken out of the picture, there's going to be problem, right? Have that confidence. Understand that you're not doing a lesser job than the developer, right? If the development was done without testing, it's proven that it doesn't work that way. That application is probably going to work, but at the end of the day, the organization may end up embarrassing themselves and causing themselves harm. So the work you do is important. So you know that, and while you are there putting your best, understand the fact that there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulder, because after certified an application as fit for purpose and it's been deployed, be any issue in life, nobody's going to point any longer at the developer. It's going to be the QA. The question is going to be was it right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
based on that, you have to understand that it's a very important work, and you have to take it. You have to handle it as such.
Okay, so let's talk about you now, or your case now, or people in your kind of situation. You are experienced, you've been in this field for like a couple of years now. You work with different industries, right? From MTN, you've so many industries you've worked with, or so many companies, and you've worked with before now, and across different industries too. But how do you stay ahead of the game? How do you stay on top of your game? Because I know it's not just about having all these years of experience, but there is an evolving, things are changing every other day and every other year, and moving from one industry to the other, maybe from fintech to health tech to to enterprise and all of that. How do you stay ahead of the curve in this industry as someone with all of these years of experience?
Yeah. Thanks. So, how I stay ahead, best. So during the time when I was looking for a job, there's a particular practice. If I go for an interview and I'm asked any question that I know that I didn't answer satisfactorily, or I didn't even know, I would ensure that never again would I be asked such a question. And I don't own it, right? I don't own the response, the answers. And that has helped me to gain a whole lot of knowledge, right? A whole lot of knowledge, because it I that has so that helped me to sort of look at things, try to look up things, try to understand the different concepts that are out there. And then I understand that the industry is evolving, is changing. Like today, we are talking about agentic testing, and then people are there are those that are perhaps imagining that the AI is going to take over the software tester. Today, we are talking of blockchain testing. So one of the things that I do is I do not lag behind, sort of, in when it comes to this new or emerging technology. I try to learn whatever I can, because I don't want to ever get to a point where I am where my knowledge becomes obsolete, right? And things just pass me by, because I had put my head so much down on the desk doing the job, and forgetting to upskill. One of the things that I do is I try to upskill myself, learn new things even while I'm on the job, new things, broaden my knowledge, and in order to stay sharp. That has helped me to seamlessly, as it were, navigate the different domain, from television to e-commerce, from e-commerce to fintech, from fintech to and then to get to the I'm in health. Yeah.
Oh, that is such a journey. I mean, all the way, like mastering all of those domains, and I could imagine like the kind of experience under your belt, both domain wise and even also in terms of the different tools you've used. And you sort of made a very interesting comment about the way testing is evolving, especially in this age of agentic AI, autonomous agents, agentic testing, blockchain testing, and that is actually the next thing I wanted us to chat about. Earlier this week, I was at an AI conference with Amazon and Anthropic, and the topic was just all about AI, what's going on in the world of AI. Something very profound that was said at that conference was that because software engineers are using cloud or any other LLM to generate their code, testing is becoming more important than even what it was before now. It's a very interesting thing, yeah, because then since the codes are coming from AI, then testing has to be like more serious, yeah. And but on the other end of the spectrum too, we have people also saying, and it's actually true, there are also companies that have been launched to also get testers off the company, to just automate all of this or use the same AI to also test. But the same AI is also telling us that because codes are coming from AI, we need more people to test. So it's kind of controversial. And these are like At this conference, I was just thinking about them. Like, these are like top players in the industry. I mean, this is coming from a conference hosted by Amazon and Anthropic. So it got me thinking. So, what exactly, where are the software testers going to be in the midst of all of this? Are they going to be at this extreme, or are they going to be at the other extreme? But let me just get let me get your mind or your thoughts around these. How do you see AI, agentic AI, impacting the world of software testing or the software career as a whole? What do you see in all of this?
All right. So, you know, the world, or the technological trend right now is gravitating towards Web3, right? There's a whole lot of talk about Web3, Web3 and stuff like that. And Web3, running on the backbone of blockchain, right? One integral part of Web3 is the fact that whatever you put on a blockchain is immutable. In other words, it cannot be changed. So you now have a situation where if you write the code and it's an erroneous code, it has some form of error or defect or whatever, and you put it on a blockchain, whether it's the code for a D app or it's the code for a smart contract, you cannot change that code, right? The most you can do would be to write a different code, an updated code, and put on and have it put on a different block, right? So that underscores the importance of testing in the era of Web3, because you know that the code, but you know that whatever you deploy out there becomes immutable. So it's important more than before to ensure that before you have anything deployed, right, it would have been tested, double checked, to ensure that there is no issue. And you know how smart contract works. It's working in an autonomous, automated manner. It would be, a smart contract would stay dormant for a whole long time, waiting for an input to trigger it, only for and at some point you may even have forgotten that, okay, oh, there's even something waiting to be triggered, only for it to trigger, and then it's executing an erroneous thread that would result to unfortunate events. So it's important, right, more than before, like I said, to have to for testing to be done in a more comprehensive manner, basically double checking. And then when we talk about AI, it is actually left to be seen because what I know about AI is that the technology keeps changing, keeps advancing, keeps getting better. It's left to be seen whether, like, in the next maybe 10, 20, 30 years, if AI would completely eliminate testers. But in the foreseeable future, right? The foreseeable future, I do not see that. I do not see that happening. Like you mentioned, even ChatGPT will tell you that I can make mistake. They even put it there as a disclaimer, and they do make mistakes. So you cannot take whatever it tells you, no matter how well you've structured your prompt. You can't take what it tells you, or the result it gives you, hook, line, and sinker. Meaning that you have to subject it to scrutiny. What rather than see AI as something that would do away with testers, and not just testers. There are people. I know it's already replacing some persons in the workforce, right? But rather than see it as a threat, it's actually at this point it's actually there to help. At my company, we all have we've all been provided access to live license ChatGPT, for example, and you are asked, or you are implored to make use of it. However, it's going to help you work better. Make use of it, so you can tell that they are not, this is intended to be a helping, to provide a helping hand, right? And it's doing that in the form of agentic testing, right? Where it's where it's helping to generate test cases. I know that of course at the end of the day those test cases would also have to be subjected to scrutiny to check for errors and stuff. But the main fact that it's able to do that, uh, reducing, eliminating or helping the testers to take care of repetitive tasks, executing the test themselves, adapting to whatever change that may occur on the application, self healing, where you know where it would adapt the test cases to whatever variations that may have occurred on the system. All of these are things that help the tester. So you see, the testers now would not be so much overburdened with repetitive tasks. They will now have more times on their hands to go look at things like use user journey. How do we work? How do we develop application in a way that would bring about more user satisfaction and stuff like that. So for me, yeah, it's a helping hand. There are no threats, right? I don't feel threatened. I try to to learn and utilize the AI tools, as much as I can, because but I don't feel threatened that, oh, it could put me out of business, or out of job in no time. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Kennedy, yeah, you've really been very inspiring and sharing all of this insight with us and everyone. And I'm just also imploring anyone who joined us live here, if you have any question for Mr. Kenneth, as usual, feel free to put it out there, and we are going to address it. And as we begin to wrap up, I have a question. What do you have for people who are just getting into this industry? What word of advice would you give to them who are just trying to get into this industry?
So yeah, my advice would be, uh, you know, learn and understand. Uh, there are no shortcuts, right? There are
Mm-hmm.
no shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
Learn and understand whatever, the principles, the methodology, and the processes that are involved in software testing. And when you're on the job, you've got a job, devote yourself or commit yourself to the work. Because, like I mentioned, the responsibility, the ethical responsibility on the software tester is enormous, right? It's you are like the gatekeeper between whether a software would, an application would do well, bringing revenue to the organization, or whether it will up in everybody's faces, right? So you put in your work, ensure that you do your utmost to that, so much so that when you certify a software as fit for purpose, you can go to bed believing that knowing that it's fit for purpose. Do not cut corners. Do not do not particularly in the era of in the era of remote work. Do not say that, okay, I had tested this 2 days ago. If you are required to test it 2 days after, you still rely on the result of what you did 2 days ago. If you're required to test it again, however number of times that you're required to test it, because you just may not know what may have changed, right? And then you leave testing it, or you forget to test it only for issues to develop. So what for me, what I imagine is, so if you see the analogy, if you see the incident I mentioned about the Boeing 737 Max, Max incident. For me, I just imagine, what if I was a tester on that project, and I
Yeah.
had felt,
I guess you'll be losing your job.
it's not just losing your job, right?
You can get
Look,
into like a
let's
legal issue, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. So there's a whole lot that there are those that may not even be able to live with themselves, knowing that, okay, they have fell in this manner and it has resulted to the death of this number of persons. So
Yeah.
to update all of those, do the right thing, do what you're supposed to do it diligently and effectively.
Sweet. That is such a banger. What is that one thing about your career that is not public knowledge? I mean, I wish it was the whole athletic weightlifting part and national medal part because at least that is not public knowledge to me. But you've already mentioned that right now. But let's talk about what else. I wish we didn't talk about that before. It would have been that. But what is that thing about your career that is not public knowledge?
Well, just thinking about it. Public knowledge. Well, really, nothing comes to mind. So I do my job well, right? And I get the accolades for it. But I know that it has not always been a it has not so I'm not painting a picture of excellence all the way. I know there was a time I was laid off at the job, like I was fired. Okay, so that's probably not public knowledge.
It's not.
Okay, yeah, but I learned the lesson from that, and I guess I have to I have to mention it. So it's so turned out that one of the roles that I was it was actually with a Canadian company. So when I started working with them, I was using my own laptop. Okay, so but eventually they sent their own laptop. But the mistake for me that I did was still using their laptop for their work, but also using it as my own personal laptop. Like because it was nicer, it was a wider screen, a better performance. I would use it for their work, and then I would also use it for whatever I would use my laptop to do. And then something happened where that caused them to try to look at what has this guy been up to, only for them to see all of this personal stuff that I done with with their laptop. So for them, it wasn't even a case of for them that was like, oh, so this is what he's been spending his time doing, or instead of working. They wasn't even interested in to say, okay, if they see that he's been watching Netflix, at what time was he watching Netflix? Yes,
Yeah.
it was a terrible thing for me to have used their system in such a manner. So it's a lesson that I learned from them. During that time, something else also happened on that job. I can tell you that I took on that role and I was doing the work of two persons. You understand, like the actual workload I would put in the put in the effort of two or more persons. So I personally I personally know that I done above and beyond on that role. But when it came down to it, so for example, they looked at my email. You are given a company email. They also have access to the email. So they looked at
Mhm.
my email and they saw like over 1,000 unread emails. And these are emails that how something will happen an automation will happen on Jira and it is being triggered, and an email gets triggered. Those emails don't require you to take any action. It just it just a notification. But because I had left them unanswered, so even the other, so part of that was what were using to sort of say, oh, this guy hasn't been really been doing his work. We have to let him go. So those are things that are not public knowledge. But beyond being public knowledge, those are things that I've learned from this, and I try to ensure that I work in a different way. For example, on no account would I use currently I'm making use of a company system. But even when it gets to I get to a point where I would probably need to go online to find out something in the line of the job. I would never do that. I would rather use my own personal system to look up that thing and then go back to doing the job, because I don't ever want a situation where they get to see that I have used their system to access anything outside of outside of their work environment. And apart from that, that using a system to access to go on the public internet to provide an avenue for a hack, right? Like all of you hear of the email, corporate email compromise and what have you. You can never tell where it would start from. So for me, these are lessons I've learned. These are things that these are things that I've that I've experienced and the lessons that I've learned from it. So for whoever that is listening, I'm just saying, when you if you're given a laptop, even if you're given a laptop, even if you are
Don't
not
use it
telling,
for personal things.
do not ever use it for for personal thing. You could be the avenue, the country through which your company gets to be hacked, or something could happen where, and then a forensic analysis is done only for things to be uncovered that that's not going to speak about you in good lights.
Oh, that was such a hard lesson, but it had to be learned. And yeah, I'm glad you have the courage to talk about that because it's not something everyone would want to talk about typically. So thank you very much, Mr. Kenneth. This was such a very revealing session, and thank you for your detailed explanation of things and the opportunities in software testing. I learned a lot myself too. And I am very optimistic that anyone who is seeing this or who will be seeing this is going to get so inspired and is going to get so fired up to get to know more about the world of software testing. And as we usually end it with my career chronicles, my last question for you is well, not a question, a teaser. Mm, coffee or tea?
Coffee or tea? It would be tea. Yeah.
All right, there we go. And that, guys, takes us to the very end of episode 17 of My Career Chronicles, where I was talking with Mr. Kenneth Etuk on starting and building a career in software testing. And that's your sign to go start and build your software testing career. And thank you very much, Mr. Kenneth, and have a great weekend ahead. Bye
Bye bye. My
bye.
pleasure.